Cookie and Nathan, Yankee, Mushi, entire Silver family, all of his friends. This past Sunday night in Kahal Sasregan, we had a pre-sheloshim asifa with Zeichen Nishmas Chaim Ben Chlomus Kalman. One of the speakers was Rabbi Shimshon Scherer, and one of the themes of his speech, was that we all know Chaim had the nickname Lobo, and he believed that Lobo was made up of two words, Lo, Lamed Aleph, like not, and Bo. And the theme was that he never thought about himself, but he always thought about the other person. When I was preparing for this speech, I had a similar thought, but I thought that the word Lobo, in deference to Jack Rudman, was really made up of two words, Lamed Vav and Beis Vav. And we know that in Yiddishkeit there's the principle of a Lamed Vavnik. A Lamed Vavnik is somebody who doesn't care about himself, but always worries about the other person. And Bo, it's in you, it's part of you. And I think that if there's anything that personified Chaim, it was that Lamed Vavnik, and boy, how it was part and parcel of his being. I was thinking back to the first time that I met Chaim. It was circa late 1977. Barbara and I had just gotten married. We lived on Forster Avenue and Ocean Parkway. Chaim and Eva lived around the corner. And the first Shabbos after Yontif, I went to daven in the Aguda on Avenue H, Rabbi Zuckerman's Aguda. And I walked in 9 o'clock. I found some friends. Remember, I sat at a table. Shlomi Rabinowitz, Heshi Oberlander, Bashi Schwebel Overshown, and felt very comfortable. On time at about 10:15, in walks this guy with a little boy and a little girl on his hands. And I remember turning to Shlomi, and I said, "Who is that?" And his answer was, "You'll find out." And you can't imagine how prophetic that "you'll find out" turned out to be. After davening, this guy with the two kids, who I'll find out who he is, comes over to me, gives me a big shalom aleichem, and a hug and a kiss. I would say that during that time, I think Chaim and Eva probably moved away from the Aguda within a few months or maybe a year thereafter. And we really lost touch till about 1990. Is it that bad? Till about 1990. In 1990, we were davening in a shul that 6 or 7 of us left, some voluntarily, some involuntarily, and we went to the house Reagan. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We were sitting on a bench in the back, and promptly at 10:15, in walked Chaim, and he saw some new faces in shul, and he walked to the back with that same Good Shabbos, that same Shalom Aleichem, that same hug, and that same kiss. I was thinking back of some of the stories of things that happened during the time that I knew Chaim, and there were 3 stories that stuck out in particular because I think they personified the man. The first one happened in Kalsas Reagan. There was somebody who was making an ofruf, and he didn't have money to make the ofruf and the chasana. And several of us got together, and we put together the money to make the Ofruf and the Chasana. Remember Shabbos morning I walked into Shul, and for those of you who know Sas Reagan, you can either go into the men's section, but I usually walked in through the ladies section. I was early enough, there were no women there. And I walk into the ladies section, and as we say in Yiddish, Smenish Git geworden. What did I see? I saw a party planner, I saw china, I saw crystal, I saw anything and everything you can imagine. And I said, uh-oh, we're in trouble. I got to my seat, and the mob was ready. And they jumped all over me. This is what our money went for? And I said, let's wait for Chaim. Sure enough, 10:15, in walks our hero. And I looked at him and I said, Houston, we've got a problem. Told him what was going on. He gathered everybody in the coat room in the back, and he said, gentlemen, this is not his simcha, this is our simcha. And the same way we would do our simcha with the utmost of class, that is what has to be done over here. We cannot make somebody, just because they don't have the money, feel like a second-class citizen. Everybody gets treated the same. And I think we know that that was Chaim. If I had to pick one characteristic about Chaim, it was that he took something that ordinarily we would look at as a negative, and he made a positive out of it. And that characteristic was stubborn. Chaim had a stubbornness when it came to chesed that was it was mind-boggling, it was unbelievable. Everything had to be done the way he wanted it, 110%, no cutting corners or anything. And that's what happened at that Ofruf. And in a lot of the chesed projects that I worked on with him, that stubbornness in such a positive way shone through. Recently I heard a story of somebody who was getting money from the government. And the person's parents had passed away, and they continued to get money from the government, which they probably shouldn't have done. After a period of about 3 years, the government caught on that this person was collecting when they probably should not have, and he got a bill for $12,000. The person went to Tav. For those of you who don't know, that's Chesky and Yossi's father, and said, what am I gonna do? The government is asking me for $12,000. I don't have $12,000. And Reb Baruch Moshe said, don't worry. 2 days later, he said, there was a check in the mail from the Chaim Foundation for $12,000. I ask you, is there anybody in this room who would have done that? I don't think so. He was unique, he was stubborn, and he did it his way. But I don't want you to think for a second that stubbornness only pertained to either friends or strangers. It pertained to family as well. And I remember a story, wasn't too long ago, where Eva was in Mount Sinai Hospital, went in for a procedure. And Chaim wasn't happy with the room that they gave Eva. He just wasn't happy with the room they gave her. What was the problem with the room? Chaim wanted that Eva should have a room facing Central Park. And she didn't have a room. So of course, as you heard Yankee say, who did Chaim call? Calls his good buddy Jerry and says, we gotta get Eva a room facing Central Park. So I said, Chaim, is there an empty room facing Central Park? He said, no. So I said, Chaim, what do you want me to do? Get me a room facing Central Park for Eva. I have to tell you, he was calling me every hour. I was calling the administration at the hospital. And finally, at about 1 o'clock in the morning, I said, Chaim, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to tell them to throw somebody out of their bed? And he said, can you do that? And he wasn't joking. He really wasn't joking. He said, I'll pay. Maybe we could find somebody who would change. That's how important, of course, Eva was to him, but that's the way he was with everybody. He really went over and beyond what is humanly imaginable. Speaking of family, Rabbi Geisler said earlier, the greatest pride that Chaim had was his family. Donnie was his man. I remember I would ask Chaim, you have this thing called the entire Lobo organization. Who are the members of the entire Lobo organization? And he would tell me Donnie. And I would say, is there a way to join? I mean, can anybody become a member? And he said, no, just me and Donnie. And that's who was the entire Lobo organization. He loved Donnie. He loved him so much, cared about him, just unbelievable. Esther was his socialite. Esther, page 6, Esther doing tzedakah functions, Esther doing the right thing, doing it the way Chaim would do it and did it, always telling me how proud he was of Esther. And finally, Cookie. We heard from Cookie earlier, and Cookie was truly the apple of Chaim's eye. She was the last one out, having gotten married just a year ago, having lived there in the house. Chaim, Cookie, I'm telling you, every time I spoke to him, Cookie is smart, Cookie is wonderful, Cookie is good-hearted, Cookie, and we see what you and Nathan have become, and you truly are your father's daughter, and we all have a lot of nachas from you and Nathan. All of these family things that I've mentioned, there's one event that I remember that truly sticks out in my mind. When Donnie had his first child, Chaim called me, and he said, Jared, I got great news. Today we became a Zayda. In talking to me, he didn't want me to feel left out. He told me what he had said at that Ofer of years earlier. And this is our simcha. These are our einiklach. He made me and Barbara feel so special that we were part of it. What can I say? The Zohar in Parshas Pinchas says that at events like this, in the Masifta Durakiya, the neshamas get together and join us. And I know that Mr. Silva and Honey and Nick and Mitch and Heshi and Sammy and all the other neshamas are up in the Masifta Durakiya, and they are smiling down at us, and they're making sure that everything that happens to us, for us, will be done the way